These roundtables are a continuation of the international online conference Global Crisis. This already affects everyone. This conference brought up all the crucial issues we are facing today. This conference was held on Alatra Unites platform and was organized by volunteers, by people themselves from all over the world. We would like also to remind our audience that this conference has been translated into more than 70 languages.
Greetings, everybody. Today, our guests are Rolf Kellner, second chairman of Amazonia for the Welt, Osinaide Garcia Gomez Kellner, first chairwoman of Amazonia for the Welt, Yuri Shevchuk, journalist, radio host, author, public figure, chairman of the Green Cross, nonprofit environmental organization, Professor Nir Shavif, who is a professor at Rassach Institute of Physics in the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, Dev Wadhwani, who has MBA in finance and economics. He is an entrepreneur, investment banker, and public speaker. Also, our guest is Damien Forrest, who works at business and product development in autonomous robotics. And another speaker is Rico Mangram, talk show host at the Rico No Suave TV and radio talk show. And also my co-host today will be Katrina. And now let's watch the video fragment from the conference related to the most important topic, climate.
Summer of 2021. Fires, floods, hurricanes, and abnormal heat waves. What is happening to the planet? You are used to hearing that global warming on the planet is due to human activity. The truth is, the problem is much more global than that, and it is rapidly gaining momentum, and there is nothing we can do to control it. The reasons for what is happening are within the planet, which has entered a period of global cataclysms. Nucleus. In 1998, a drastic shift of the planet's core was recorded. After that, the GRACE satellites and instruments on the Earth's surface detected an abnormal expansion of the planet at the equator, as well as heating from the inside. Because of the displacement of the core, it is unbalanced. With its vibrations, it creates shock waves, which are manifested on the surface of the planet by increased earthquakes and cracks on the Earth's surface. Through these cracks, a large volume of water escapes into the bowels of the planet. Molten magma rushes to the surface and heats this water. The water evaporates and escapes into the atmosphere. These enormous masses of water fall down in the form of sudden torrential rains. As the planet expanded, new continental rifts began to form. The number of volcanic eruptions increased. Significant tsunamis, including catastrophic ones, tornadoes, tropical storms, and hurricanes became more frequent. Floods and wildfires have become part of the daily news. Since 2015, the situation has become even worse. And today, the deformation of the planet continues to escalate enormously. Earthquakes. Earthquakes with magnitudes greater than 8.5 have increased dramatically over the past 20 years. Since 2003, synchronization of seismic noise began, which means that the Earth is preparing for a mega earthquake. According to scientists, it will occur in the Japanese archipelago and will have a magnitude of more than 10. which is 32 times stronger than the 2011 Tohoku earthquake of magnitude 9. Entire countries could disappear from the face of the earth at any moment. Volcanoes. Since the beginning of the 20th century, the number of powerful volcanic eruptions has doubled as a result of growing internal energy of the planet. There has also been a steady increase in the strength of eruptions and the amount of ash and lava that has been released. Today, about 600 million people live near active volcanoes, capable of destroying entire cities at any moment. And every day, the probability of these events is only increasing. Glaciers. Greenland and Antarctic glaciers are losing 3 times more mass than 30 years ago. We are told that global warming is the cause. We are not told that the glaciers are melting from the bottom up because of the intense release of heat from the Earth's interior. For example, Antarctica is only melting on the west side, where there is a huge magma chamber. Greenland's glaciers are shrinking for a similar reason. Obviously, man has no influence on what is happening. World ocean. In 2019, the temperature of the world's oceans rose 0.075 degrees Celsius above average. This may not seem much, but in fact, the numbers are catastrophic. The energy for such heating is equivalent to the explosion of 3.5 billion atomic bombs dropped on Hiroshima. And this energy came from the very bowels of the Earth. Melting of the sea ice and expansion of the warming water has caused the sea level to rise by almost 15 centimeters in the last 30 years. And this is just the beginning. There has also been an increase in the number and power of storms, as well as a significant acceleration of currents. Hurricanes, tornadoes. The year of 2020 broke all records for the frequency of hurricanes and tropical cyclones on the planet for all time. Because of increasing humidity and rising temperatures, the intensity and number of tornadoes has increased. They have become more frequent, where they used to be rare. Since the 1950s, the number of tornadoes in Europe has increased tenfold and continues to grow.
It's freaking destroyed, Josie!
Temperature anomalies and records. According to the data prepared for the IPCC report on climate change, over the past 140 years, the average temperature on the planet has risen by 1 degree Celsius and by 3 degrees Celsius in the Arctic. And we can already see the catastrophic consequences right outside the window. The period since 2000 has accounted for 19 of the 20 hottest years on the planet in the history of meteorological observations. Floods. Floods are one of the most common natural disasters that are also growing in strength. 60 years ago, only 8 major floods were recorded per year. However, in 2020, this number increased by 25 times and totaled 201 cases. Moreover, they began to occur synchronously, affecting several countries at once. According to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, the number of floods in the U.S. has increased by approximately 100% over the past 30 years. Between 1998 and 2017, floods affected more than 2 billion people worldwide.
There's so many people dead.
Video was prepared for the climate section of the conference, but today we are going to talk not only about climate, but also about artificial intelligence, also about consumer format of our society, And finally, we will end with a creative society as the only possible way how to save life on Earth. The conference has revealed that the crisis is already running at a full speed and in every field of our society. Now, I would like to pass the word to you, Mr. Mangram. What are your impressions from the video and also from the conference? Would you be so kind and share your impression with us?
Yeah, so being a talk show host and being able to see what's going on around the world and actually, really telling, my viewers, what's really going on, it's the number one thing about the global crisis has always been a sad issue. It's always been a sad issue where people have actually lost their lives because of floods. And I traveled through Costa Rica. I traveled from, I have family in Cuba. And also just here in the US, you can definitely see from California's standpoint of fires, continuously fires. The problem about it is it gets so hot where the trees are actually starting to burn. And then you have, like I have friends that's in Hawaii where there's volcanoes and you don't hear about it as much, but when you do hear about it, it's a sad situation. And then you start hearing about, I was looking at the video about the Arctic, right? Where you're starting to see as far as water and floods, but it's a sad thing every year. We understand that once you have a global crisis 1 year, you're expecting for it to actually continuously go up because we look at it as Mother Nature, right? We look at it as, okay, what is the world actually doing? How is it being damaged over time? And I look at it as a sad situation of there's bombings, right? We really didn't talk in regards to, I didn't see anything in regards to, the video. When you talk about a global crisis, we talk about when there's wars, where there's bombings, and bombs are like Hiroshima. We look at things like that can actually cause damage to the earth. And when you hear something like that, and then you look at a video like this and you say, oh my God, the water is actually 3 times as if it was like a nuclear bomb. Well, there was nuclear bombs that's been going on during the wartime that could be damaging the earth that can lead up to times like this. So I look at it as a very sad situation. I look at it as it's hard to repair a foundation of something like that if it's already been done. There's nothing really like California has earthquakes all the time. As they continue to have earthquakes, that foundation will continue to how can I say it? It's going to continue to get worse. Costa Rica, they had floods a couple years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. I've never seen a flood in Costa Rica, ever. The family that I know that's down there said, we just had a major flood. Well, there's a damage in regards to in Latin America, Central America, the Caribbean islands. There's things that's actually happening underneath that's causing the degradation of the foundation in order for things like this to happen out of nowhere. Last but not least, I'll say about Chicago. I'm in Chicago. We always say, hey, you never know what the weather's going to be like here in Chicago. Well, we really don't, because 1 minute in the wintertime, it can be, below zero. Next thing you know, it's like 50 to 60 degrees out of nowhere. And we're like, well, that's just Chicago. Well, no, I think because what's happening around the world is that we're getting the after effects of what other cities may be going through when it comes to that heat wave. So, the global crisis itself is something that I stay on top of, where there's wars, there's things that's damaging, there's bombings, and anything to be able to rattle the underground of our nation. So that's my thought.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Mangram, for your words. Yes, as we can see, the climate changes, we can see every day at each part of our planet. Now I would like to pass the word to Mr. and Mrs. Kellner. What were your thoughts after watching the conference? What stuck in your mind the most from the conference? Let's start with Mrs. Kellner.
Hello.
Hello.
At first, I would like to thank you for invite today and to opportunity to speak about the global crisis. I'm sorry for my English because I have today spoke too much German, and I try to speak correctly, and that you understand me. So the impression that I have from this video is we see here in German very current, and I see in this video that that should be a natural process of the nature. But my question is if this natural process should be so fast, so rapid. My ascendant Indian in Amazonas. I'm from Amazon in Brazil, and we have. I think that we should treat the nature good. If you will not treat the nature good, the answer is like a tornado, for example.
Thank you. And Mr. Kellner, I would like to give you the same question. What would you say after the conference? Your understanding?
First of all, thanks as well for the invitation and to have the chance to speak with you all. And I lived 4 years in Manaus, which is the capital of the Amazon state. So it has more than 2,500,000 inhabitants. And yes, I studied informatics, so I'm a SAP consultant, senior consultant, and worked my life for this big companies like Siemens, RWE, E.ON, which are, I hope so, thinking as well about this topic. And the question is, and this is the reason why we started with this NGO, the own NGO, is that we want to help stop this climate crisis. We started with one project which is fully financed for bought a house for autistic children in Manaus, but this is not the topic. So this is helping people over there. And another topic, another project is Museum of Amazonas, MUSA. It's called MUSA. Mr. Masny has a link on the internet. And Filippo Bassi, I invited yesterday. He's the director, actual director there. And he is an archaeologist. So I think he is, I think, a little bit more than 2,000 years, more or less millions of years. But he wasn't able to participate today. So this is a pity. We have another contact with a family member in Brasilia, capital city of Brazil, because he's working for the police over there and has a contact to the Department of Medio Ambiente, environment. But he needs help from us because he's only 20 years old or 26. 27. And we tried to speak with this department, but nobody is answering there. And Bolsonaro and Lula, Bolsonaro is the actual president. Lula was a former president, are fighting each against, and I don't know what they are thinking. So we need a strategy to do our best, and we are able to take a lot of contacts which are created in the internet as well to these conferences. How can we stop this deforestation, for instance, or what can we do to stop this crisis?
Thank you, Mr. Kellner, for your words. Mr. Forrest, how about with you? What are your thoughts, views on the video and also on the conference?
Well, first, thank you for inviting me. So regarding these impressive images, fortunately, as I'm living in Europe, I wasn't directly faced with this event, but maybe it's an issue we should work on because in Europe, we don't see directly the consequences of this event. And this year, it's the first year that Germany, Belgium, and Luxembourg had very terrible floodings. They hadn't seen similar floodings in years. I'm not a climate expert, but I work in artificial intelligence, and maybe what I can say from what I see is that in the last 5 years, and maybe more importantly in the last year or in the last 2 years, we see that the intensity and the frequency of this event, of this so-called natural disaster, is increasing. Vancouver just hit 50 degrees Celsius this year, which is crazy. Clearly, we will have to reduce our impact on the environment. But I think also we can ask this question is how we can use more of our technology to let's say, better master or predict this event, even if we cannot directly prevent them. And also probably manage the responses to these catastrophic impacts, because probably we are not ready. The example of Belgium, Germany, just 1 month ago shows it. And also regarding Europe, probably we are less touched by this event.
Thank you for your sharing. Thank you for sharing your understanding, Mr. Forrest. It is indeed very truthful. Our next guest is Yuri Shevchuk. Mr. Shevchuk, please, would you like to share your impression from the conference with us? Thank you.
First of all, I was amazed and impressed by the scale of the conference. That was my greatest impression and feeling, basically. It was a wonderful job, great job, and it's amazing that it was done on the volunteer basis. It's just wonderful. And secondly, it was very interesting to observe how nature seems to be acting, you know, like a conscious being, like something that possesses a mind. It turns out that there was a certain plan which nature had, and nature acts according to this plan, and it conducts such type of actions. Of course, it's not so, but it looks like this. On the first sight, there is such impression arising. I remember that in the years of my childhood, the rivers were more full with water, but now they are like little springs, which just rolling somewhere between the hills. And in my childhood, I was said, don't go there because you can drown there. But now, not even a frog would not drown in such a river. So I really want to say that the changes in climate have been going throughout the existence of humanity, and of course they are not always due to the anthropogenic factor, but of course they relate to a certain extent to a human activity, but not as fatal as it seems to many people. But from this, we shouldn't make a conclusion that we cannot do anything at all. We can do a lot, and we should try to do this. At the conference, I saw a lot of people who are already ready to do something, and they are already acting. And that was my second great positive impression of the conference.
Thank you, Mr. Shevchuk, for sharing your thoughts. Thank you that you said that this climate changing is not about the anthropological factor, but it's about cyclicity. Mr. Vadvani, can you share your views, experience, or impression on the conference?
Well, I'm not an environmentalist, neither am I a climate expert, but I can tell you that I studied in Cambridge, Massachusetts in the mid-90s, mid to late 90s. And back in the day, I had, colleagues at Harvard and MIT and Brown and many of the colleges in Boston. And they were already talking about climate change back then. And the fact that we have the North Atlantic drift, greenhouse effect, the ozone hole is undeniable. Now, I'm an economist actually, and I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a banker. So this is not my area of expertise, but the economic impact it's having, just because humanity functions on greed and fear, plain and simple. This is pure greed. So today I talk to you from Dubai. This is the fossil fuel capital of the world. It won't be in 15 years, I can promise you that. Renewable energy has to take over. But unfortunately, the politicians are putting profit and economics ahead of the planet. And you cannot negotiate and you cannot bargain with Mother Nature. That's all I have to say. I'm no expert, but I know what I don't know. And I know that it is stupidity to negotiate when it comes to our sustenance as human beings on this planet. So I don't understand what people are, all these climate accords and these conferences they have, and there's a negotiation, they have carbon taxes. You cannot monetize this, guys. If there's no planet, in the next 50 years, what are we even discussing? Plain and simple. I mean, hopefully I will be dead by then, but not the next generation. So it's just pure, simple logic, and it's pure stupidity on behalf of capitalism that has got us to where we are. Because the Western world basically started with fossil fuels. And then the developing countries tried to become developed nations and follow the same business model. And because of pure economics, we are where we are at today. Because I'm Indian. So today, India and China are one of the biggest emitters of fossil fuels. But shame on America. I studied there. I love America. But shame on America. Because America isn't doing its fair bit. So, my view is that this is economically driven and it is highly irresponsible. You can call me it's an ideological outburst, but that's how I really feel, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Barbani, for your words. Mr. Kellner, as we were able to see in the conference, carbon dioxide and oxygen, it is shifting towards this. What can you tell us about this, and what negative impact does this have on a human life?
Yeah, it's difficult because the state of Amazon is okay. We don't have a lot of deforestation, but the state of Pará, Tocantins, and so on, the northeast is changing. So politics from Bolsonaro, I don't know if this affects the deforestation, because this exists since 20, 30 years, since the world is existing. So I think we need to speak with somebody over there who has the right numbers. In Germany, politicians are totally against Bolsonaro. They want the other president, ex-president Lula, back. That's the tragedy of Merkel and co. But Germany and Norway had an Amazon Trust, which is stopped, so no money is going to Brazil anymore. And if you are opening YouTube, for instance, and searching something there, Norway uses for deforestation, not for reforesting projects. So there's a lot of politic in the way. So as politicians, I don't know if we have luck to do anything. The other topic is the CO2 topic. In your conference, 12-hour conference, you explained everything about CO2 and about the middle of the earth. So, for instance, in Greenland, the heat is coming from above and not from this jet stream. So nobody says this in the media. I need to speak with somebody who has these numbers in the hand, with doesn't depend on any politicians. After
Thank
that,
you.
maybe we have a strategy to do something. If we have this, we need to search the money to do the right way.
Thank you, Mr. Kellner, for these important words. And as you have touched upon the Amazon rainforest, Mrs. Kellner, what is the alarming situation at the moment with the state of the Amazon rainforest? How negatively does it affect life on the entire planet?
The current situation in Amazon, we have this this 2-arm every year, and now we have the big Amazon river that we have more than 30 centimeters flood. We have a flood too, but in the fire that the maiden to show a current that's happens every year since always. I don't know why they show us horror, some things that for us normal, not I think I say not good, but I say that's not surprise for the people that there live.
Thank you, Mrs. Kellner. Mr. Shevchuk, you were talking about the fact that ecology doesn't influence the environment on Earth as much as the cyclicity of climatic disasters. Can you tell us from your professional view in more detail, what is the difference between ecology crisis and climatic crisis?
Regarding the environmental crisis, by environmental crisis, we usually understand some anthropogenic impact on nature. And nobody denies it. Of course, it does exist. But the thing is that anthropogenic impact is actually what is relevant for the last 2 centuries, when we had this industrial revolution and we started actively burning the minerals and mineral resources, mineral fuel. That's when the so-called greenhouse gases appeared, although in greater amounts than before. But of course, in addition to greenhouse gases emitted by people and human activities, the nature also emits such gases. But basically, it is considered that these 2 last centuries, is when the anthropogenic factor started to exert the greatest impact on the biosphere, and we came to the situation which we have right now. In actual fact, this situation is cyclical, and every 1500 years, it's like one of the cycles, because there are actually many cycles. Researchers ascertains that there are about 17 cycles in nature, in fact. But I will speak about one cycle, which is the bond cycle of 1500 years. Every 1500 years, we have almost the same, like a part of our planet becomes totally inappropriate for living conditions by different reasons. And from there, people just begin to escape. This is what is called migration of nations, which happened 1,500 years ago, the Great Migration, which was due to drought in steppe region in Central Asia. And before that, if we scroll back another 1,500 years, 3,000 years ago, there was another Aryan migration by the Aryan peoples. And every time it was due to the destruction of civilizations and with some new cultural changes and, let's say, new cultural paradigms on the planet, and also the changes of morals, ethics, aesthetics, etc. So every time there is such an impression that, as if, someone just erases everything that people have done before that, and people have to begin everything from the beginning. Not quite so, not from the very, very beginning, because we still have a lot of left after the Roman Empire, but still we had 3 centuries which were called the Dark Centuries, and at that time culture basically and civilization, they were actually in stagnation, they didn't develop, and only afterwards, after again climate change, when there was the climate optimum in the Middle Ages, then we actually began to develop culture, arts, and civilization as a whole in Europe and in all other parts of the globe. Once again, I emphasize that all these events were happening actually at the same time. Even in the undiscovered yet America, in the old world, in Europe, and I guess in Australia as well, but we don't have data about that. This is the situation we have, and these events were happening actually before the moment when the last glacier left, the Valdai Glacier. And our entire Anthropocenter actually is now split into, this cycle is split into 1500 year cycle. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shevchuk. These are very important information that you shared with us. Professor Shaviv, can you tell us about the factors of climate change that humans have no control over? And how important is it for people now to consider and talk about all the factors of climate change? And also, do we have the resources today to be able to adapt and survive?
Indeed, humans have had some effect on the climate. I'll mention it a little bit at the end. But besides that, there are a lot of variations that we see on various timescales over the past, or on timescales of centuries, for example. We see variations which are typically of order 1 degree, and we can attribute that to variations in solar activity. On longer timescales, actually it's centuries to say millennia. On longer timescales of tens of thousands of years, we have seen ice ages come and go, and these are probably due to what's called the Milankovitch cycles, which are changes in the orbital parameters of the Earth, like the amount of ellipticity, the inclination relative to the orbit, and so forth. On longer timescales, still on timescales of millions of years, we see variations. Some of them can be due to changes in the atmospheric composition, which are due to, say, volcanic activity, and also activity like tectonic activity. But these are very short, very slow changes. In addition to that, we see that our galactic geography also affects climate here on Earth. So on these long timescales, the variations that typically we witness, so on Milankovitch cycles, we see variations which are typically, say, 5 degrees globally, maybe a little bit less. On geological timescales, we have variations which are maybe up to 10 degrees globally. Over the past, say, billion years, we have seen periods during which Earth has had glaciations, and the intermediate periods, which is actually the norm, where we didn't have any ice caps whatsoever. Now, the human contribution that we have been responsible for is comparable to the solar activity, namely something which is of order 1 degree. So everything adds up to a changing climate, and the size, of course, depends on the timescale that we're looking at.
Thank you, Professor. How can artificial intelligence serve the good of all mankind? Mr. Forrest, how should our society change for artificial intelligence to be able to serve every person and not just a few individuals? What are the ethical conditions for worldwide implementation?
Well, thank you for the question. It's a broad question. Well, I think that it's not a matter of technology, because well, if you have some experience in, let's say, new technologies like AI, robotics, you can see that it helps us resolving many issues. For instance, on climate, you can better predict climate. You can better understand these events with artificial intelligence. So probably and it doesn't limit to climate, of course, because of artificial intelligence, we can help us on many issues regarding agricultural efficiency, health issues, also on, well, let's say, having more hazardous job done by robots with AI than humans. So the matter is not the technology, it's probably, well, for climate, yeah, I think it's a matter of responsibility, because as we have seen together, maybe we are not fully clear on the responsibility of this disaster. Is it due to the cyclicity, or and what part is due to the effect of humans on the environment? So what I would say is that, well, for AI to be better used, and it's already used for many applications for goods, but we should do more. Well, is that as a society, as investors, as politicians, and also as individuals, we should favor our investment on technology that will produce more goods than wrong. It's the case if you look case by case, technology by technology. You can see that some technology are more for only cost reduction, and others are more for helping us solving problems that are really difficult to solve, like the climate change. So I don't think there's an easy answer, but well, we should definitely invest more in technology for the good of the environment. I don't have the exact figures, but looking at some figures like the investment of on the market, sorry, for artificial intelligence in biotechnology is just 1 billion euro, where the market for logistics services is 50 billion euro. For climate, I guess it's the same. Probably it's limited to 1 or 2 billion euro, and we should definitely put more money. But for that, we need more notion of responsibility.
Thank you, Mr. Forrest. As we were able to see, and as you mentioned, artificial intelligence can be very useful and helpful, but not in the consumer format of society. The crude reality of today's consumer society is that the unnecessary workers, not only blue collar, but also white collar, will be simply laid off. Such examples can already be observed in Asia, where we can see ports, factories, and even banks with no people. In the consumer society, corporations recklessly pursue their interests and profits in the first place, cutting costs, laying people off, destroying the environment. You might think that we can rely on the social security system of our countries, but will the 10% of people still having jobs, will they be willing to finance the 90% of people without a job? This minority will be neither able nor willing to carry such a burden. This will only lead to social unrest and everything that comes with it. Mr. Wadhwani, in your opinion, what is the danger of developing and implementing artificial intelligence in consumer society? How do you see the consumer crisis that we are about to face and already facing, and it has actually already started? Are there any necessities that we as humanity need to do in order to survive it?
I'm very, I'm a 50-50 man, because I grew up as a capitalist. And when I went to the States and studied as a young Indian boy, capitalism was something that I truly believed in. And it's not just artificial intelligence, it's also technology that has taken away jobs. So without giving you a big lecture, I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out that the population is growing and the job market is shrinking. So we have a social responsibility. That is number one. But more importantly, as we evolve into the AI and tech space, I believe the education system hasn't caught up with the reality of the times. Because I'm an MBA and a CFA. My degrees today mean nothing. My skill set in the 90s, is of very little value today in 2021. So the fact of the matter is the education system catching up with the changing times. Because when I grew up, it was those professions will be, stockbrokers don't exist. There used to be a 3-man cockpit on an aeroplane. There used to be a pilot, a co-pilot, and an engineer. And today it's a two-man cockpit. The engineer is a computer. I can go on with the examples. We'll have driverless cars. That's what Elon Musk is going to be rolling out. So an ordinary person who basically seeking employment could drive an Uber, but today you will have driverless cars in the next 5 to 10 years. So it boils down to the education system, because the next generation, I have my friends' kids who come to me for counseling, and they're asking me, what should I do? And honestly, guys, I really don't know. Because I have to upgrade my skill set. I'm an MBA and a CFA. I have to keep upgrading my skill set to be relevant in today's society. So what worries me is the next generation and the education system. What are we going to teach the next generation so that they can basically be relevant with AI and technology? That is my biggest concern. It's all about education.
Thank you, Mr. Vardhani, for your comments on this topic. Yes, it is really true. Now, Mr. Mangram, we appreciate you for inviting our participants of ALLATRA International Public Movement to your talk show and let people know about the Creative Society project. Thank you for your deep understanding that people should know about it. This creates a great example of how the media should help to bring the information on what option we as humanity have to pass through the upcoming climatic changes. What should be the role of this industry? What should they do to inspire people in building a creative society? Why is it important that the media bring positive examples?
So one of the biggest things about being in media is to make people aware of what's going on. The whole objective, if it's bad or if it's good, there's always a flip side to everything. When it comes to the media, there's always conspiracy theories, right? There's always ways that, hey, I have my thoughts and I want to share this with the world, and let's see what the world comes back to be able to say, hey, is this the right path to be able to go down? And then make a decision from there. I kind of listened to the gentleman right before me. He made up a good point in regards to education. And education is the key. Education in regards to my talk show is to educate people in regards to things that they need to be aware of, and then they make their own decisions. But it's almost as if the education has to happen from our youth. Society, we have to let people know that the positive image or the positive ways that we have to go about educating people and for them to be able to make their own decisions is the right way to go. Now, of course, this world is all about, let me make my decision, it's my choice, and then move from there. But the media is the way to actually get that out there, because once they start to talk about it, boom, you have them. Everybody knows about it. So now that everybody knows about it, it's like you're promoting an idea. When you're promoting an idea, people tend to see what that idea is, and then they continue to talk about it. Either if it's good or if it's bad, it's always a promotion. It's always a way of educating them to say, hey, you can go and talk about this, but here is the foundation of what we're trying to get out. And that's basically what my show is about. Positivity all day. Positivity in regards to what I want to be able to bring out to the audience and out to the world. But then, of course, it's all about what the world wants to be able to take from that. So, hope that helps.
And I totally agree with you that the role of media is educate people and to bring positive to the people each day. Dear viewers, let us now watch a video interview with Dr. Yusuf Sidani. Dr. Yusuf Sidani is a professor of leadership and business ethics at the Olayan School of Business of American University of Beirut in Lebanon. This interview was taken for the roundtables after the conference.
Hi, my name is Yusuf Sidani. I'm professor of leadership and business ethics at the Olayan School of Business at the American University of Beirut, Lebanon. I have background in business. My undergraduate degree from AUB, from American University of Beirut, was in business. I have an MBA from Indiana University and PhD from University of Mississippi. There are several crises that face humanity nowadays. Some of these crises pertain to the environment and things that are around us at the, in the ecosystem. But I think many of the more inherent problems relate to issues of how people can talk to each other. Our inability to be able to live with each other, to talk to each other, to understand each other, to tolerate each other, leads to crises in the other areas. We understand that the resources are getting more scarce. The things that we use in production are becoming less abundant. People cannot stand motionless regarding the problems that they face. If we only wait for others to solve our problems, then everybody will be waiting for somebody else to solve their problems. People need to take the initiative in solving their own problems and the problems of their communities. Some people, by definition, they feel more motivated, more incentivized to be proactive in solving the problems of society. That's fine. We need leaders and we need followers, but we need to be able to communicate properly, assess problems properly, and bring forward proper solutions to the common problems that we face. Many communities from various continents. You need contribution from the less prosperous nations as well as the contributions of the more prosperous nations. It's very much like offering a medicine to somebody. If the doctor does not really ask about how the person is feeling, about it becomes a very intense diagnosis of problems, which require the contribution of many individuals. What unites all people is they are human. And when we go back to the basics, our humanity, then we can understand each other. We understand that we come with various languages, ethnicities, races, religions, various cultures, various backgrounds, various philosophies. But after all, we are people, we are humans, and we need to understand that this is the basic common thing that brings us together. When we go back to our humanity, we'll become better people, and we'll be able to solve together our community's problems.
Dear viewers and friends, as was mentioned by Dr. Sidani, that our society must be based on love and respect for one another. We should learn to communicate and respect one another. Mr. Kellner, how do you see a creative society where human life has the highest value, and why it is important to build such a society now, taking into the account occurring climatic events on the planet?
The Earth, as well as all of us, were created by God, right? And not by politicians. I think this is the most important thing. So we need to hear to our heart to do the right things. Was short form, and everything else you explained in your conferences for about 12 hours per conference. So for this, we are here, and we will work what is saying our heart, and not Merkel, Bolsonaro, Lula, and so on.
Thank you, Mr. Kellner. And now I would like to ask you, Mrs. Kellner, from your point of view, how can creative society help the entire ecosystem of the Amazon rainforest?
My opinion?
Yes.
We not only the nature to respect, but the people to respect. We have to learn to respect each other, and so we can work together to protect the nature, and so to treat the nature good.
Thank you, Mrs. Kellner. Mr. Shevchuk, would you agree that only a society where human life would be of the highest value can help us cope with the climatic crisis that is already going on right now?
I don't know whether it will just help, cope with all the crisis, with the climate crisis in particular. I would like to say once again that climate crisis is not what depends only on ourselves. These are climate changes which have a cyclic character, but the fact that we can help each other and this way to minimize our losses from this disastrous condition in which we are now coming, yes, that's for sure. We can help each other. And we should also take into account that these cyclic changes have been taking place not for the first time, and we can see how people actually used to react to such changes, how they created certain communities which helped each other, at least in the time of the Middle Ages, when there was the so-called Lesser Ice Age. What they done in the antiquity, when there was this anti-climatic minimum. And going back to history, we can say that every time only those communities survived who undertook the functions of education, preservation of knowledge, spread of knowledge, and creation of something new, creation of a new information. And those were monastery communities, schools, the first universities which were established, and all of them preserved the knowledge and thus preserved humanity and religions as well. That's what I think. Also regarding what kind of people will be demanded in the future, there is such a test. Try to take like 8 minutes, a short period of time, 8 minutes, and try to think of a subject or a machine or a method which was never invented but be demanded in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Shevchuk, for your valuable opinion. I would like to pass the word to Professor Shaviv and ask his opinion on the society we should build in order to preserve life on this planet.
I think natural disasters are a relatively minute problem. We think, we might see it in the news as something large, but natural disasters have been with us for ages and they will continue to be here. And they're not really a big problem when you consider it compared to other problems we face. I think most of society's problems are social. We have seen the unrest, for example, that, for example, in my neighbors in Arab countries, with the Arab Spring, we see that a lot of social unrest, which I think are a much greater problem that we should tackle. We should make sure that more countries become democratic. We must make sure that more societies advance technologically and socially so that they will be able to tackle natural disasters that do take place. I mean, I'm an optimist, but I think that we should invest our resources in social problems, and that would make everything more resilient to tackle natural and other problems.
Thank you, Professor Shavi, for your optimism. Dear Mr. Wadhwani, how important is it for us to unite in order to create a creative society in which human life will be of the highest value?
The biggest thing that concerns me today is the rich-poor divide. So like I shared with you in my interview a few days ago, the top 1% of the planet actually owns 99% of everything. And this is published by the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. And out of the top 1%, so let's say we have 7 billion people on this planet, 70 million people own 1%, 99% of everything. Now, this is a very scary stat. And out of that 1%, back when it was in Davos, I think about 4 or 5 years ago, the World Economic Forum, they said 42 people owned half of everything. And today it is under 25 people that own half of everything. In my opinion, capitalism has failed. I grew up a young Indian boy, US educated, believing that capitalism was the answer. But today I believe that capitalism has failed middle class society. And this is something that concerns me gravely. And governments today believe the only answer is to print more money. And all that does is add to inflation, which basically the middle class is getting squeezed every single day. So I'm worried about a social revolution at some point. Because understand, the US has a welfare system, Europe has a welfare system. India and China don't. I'm Indian. I don't get any handouts. I have no medical plan by my government. Neither do I have any kind of welfare plan if I'm unemployed. Unlike the Western world. And China is much the same. So I'm very worried about the rich-poor divide and the injustice of the inequality of wealth. That is not, there's no trickle-down effect to the middle class anymore. That is my biggest concern.
Thank you, Mr. Wadhwani. Let's hope all our viewers will be inspired with your words and will join the Creative Society project. Only by unification.
A prayer to everyone, guys. Like I shared with you, I'm still a child at heart. Can you imagine if the developed nations just cut their spending, their arms spending, their defense spending by 10% and pass that benefit on to the middle class in a corresponding manner? You have no idea the economic impact it would have on the working class people. But it's a fantasy. I'm a dreamer. So, just sharing a little childhood fantasy that I have in my head. It'll never happen though.
Yes, I totally agree. Would you agree, Mr. Mengram, that media can help us to build this dream, and it is important that they share the positive views on how the society should function and what should be the relationship between people?
Well, it's a go figure. It's kind of like I've already built my creative society here in Chicago over the last 3 years. And the reason why I say that is because it was kind of like the icing on the cake when both Olgas came on to my show and kind of made it of something that we've done already with building talent. From talent to musicians, to activists, to people of a movement, to people that actually is doing great for the world already. During the pandemic, I learned a lot. Well, I learned a lot from people, but I also learned a lot in regards to how to be able to be positive during the pandemic. And one of the things is it's all about human nature. It's all about the love that we have as a show to show our viewers that we can still love each other during this pandemic, to be able to basically build the talent to support each other and also be able to have a great society. I think the media is always going to have a say-so in regards to anything that's actually happening in the world. But one of the things is that humane, being a positive person, or if you're doing something great that's for the world in general, you need to be recognized for it. And if you're not recognized for it, then shame on the person not recognizing you. And I think because there's so many things that's going on within the world, well, especially in Chicago, there's things that's happening where our youth are dying. And our youth is actually dying, but I'm also bringing in the youth that's actually doing something great for the world to be able to show the other youth that, hey, you can still live to be great. You still have a way to be able to show your talent and be the best you can be. So I think, the media is, and that's one of the reasons why I love to be on TV and I love to be in front of people, is because we have to be able to have a voice. Some people are shy. They don't like to be on TV. They like to say things offside. But as the media, for me, I love to voice that opinion, because then what happens is I connect one person to another person to another person, and then you have that creative society as well. So.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mengen. Dear guests and viewers, we are happy to announce the next international online conference, Global Crisis, The Time for Truth, which will take place on 4th of December 2021. This conference will be dedicated to the climate and environmental catastrophes we are facing today and also in the near future. Dear guests, dear speakers, thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for your participation in today's roundtable discussion. We hope to see you again. Dear viewers, thank you very much for your attention. All comments and questions you can send to us to our email address info@allatraunites.com. We also would like to ask you, dear guests, and also dear viewers, share conference Global Crisis. This already affects everyone. Share it with your neighbors, with your family, with your friends and community. Thank you very much and have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Спасибо огромное, замечательно.